variant of my speech to a variety of different groups, most often to groups of women lawyers or to groups, most particularly, of young Latino lawyers and students. As my speech made clear in one of the quotes that you reference, I was trying to inspire them to believe that their life experiences would enrich the legal system, because different life experiences and backgrounds always do. I don't think that there is a quarrel with that in our society.
All right, that was Justice Sotomayor, and she also made the comments about a wise Latina. Here's the question. When you have guys like Paul Ryan saying this is the textbook definition of racist, or Lindsey Graham suggesting Trump's comments are un-American, or the comments by Mitch McConnell or anybody else, and you ignore the obvious political conflicts of interest in which is going on in the Trump University case, when you have a district judge who has been criticized by Donald Trump, yet is a member of the La Raza Lawyers Association. And by the way, the judge appointed a law firm that had paid the Clintons $675,000 for speeches as well as political donations. And also, when you have the La Raza Lawyers Association of California at the bottom of their website, that they have a link to the National Council of La Raza, a fairly radical group, that is something funny, Sally?
I mean, they have a link to a bunch of things, but I'm sorry.
The National Council of La Raza, as you probably know, believes that the southwest part of the United States actually belongs to Mexico. Do you agree with that?
I'm just curious. Do you think that
No, you don't answer. You don't, Sally. I don't have patience today. You don't answer a question with a question. The National Council of La Raza believes
he's not a member.
The National Council
of La Raza.
Okay, the National Council of La Raza, which is connected to the website of the San Diego La Raza Lawyers Association, believes the southwest portion of the United States belongs to Mexico. Do you believe that?
I don't. I haven't given it much thought, Sean, but I'll tell you, if you go on my website, you'll find a link to your website somewhere in there, and I can guarantee you I don't agree with most everything you're saying.
Okay, so now on top of that, Monica Crowley, the National Council of La Raza, or the race as it is said, along with the Hispanic Bar Association. And, you know, if you look at the website, you look at the connections, and you look at some of the bizarre, I would argue, rulings in this case, it seems like that there is a conflict with this particular judge who holds somewhat radical views. Is that a fair statement, Monica Crowley?
Yes, it is, and that's why Donald Trump was correct to be concerned about this. If you do a review of this judge and his associations, here's what you find. You find that Judge Curiel is an Obama appointee. He's also a campaign contributor to Democrats, including the House Democratic Conference Chairman, Javier Becerra. The lawyers group to which he belongs, as you pointed out, Sean, is not the National Council of La Raza, but it is a Latino activist group for lawyers that has ties to La Raza. Judge Curiel also did another thing. He appointed two law firms to handle the cases involving the Trump University lawsuit. Those law firms have senior partners who have repeatedly donated to Democrats, including Obama, Mrs. Clinton, and MoveOn.org. So, of course, Donald Trump has grounds to be worried. I don't blame him for raising it. The question is, was it the best and most proper way for him to raise it, doing it the way he did, by bringing more public attention to the lawsuit and focusing the attention on him when he should be focused more on the United States and what he's going to do?
I would tend to agree with that, and I would also argue that it was probably inarticulate, but I think there is obvious conflicts of interest here in which the judge, I think in any other case, would probably move towards recusal considering the associations or making the appointments of law firms that are associated so dominantly with opposition to Donald Trump. I mean,
have we vetted all the senior partners? We're sure they all give to Clinton leadership. Look, listen, Donald Trump didn't just attack this one judge. And by the way, whatever, he can think the judge doesn't like him, doesn't like his rulings, whatever. If it had been a white judge, he wouldn't have made it about this. In every other case, he didn't make it about
I don't know. Wait, hang on. I don't know if that other judge would be associated with the group La Raza, which means the race, which is also associated with the National La Raza, which has very extremist and controversial views. So, you know, you say that in a vacuum as though so that is meaningless and absolutely has no relevance in the case. If somebody has very, very radical views on issues involving Hispanic Americans and Mexican Americans, you've got to wonder whether or not that could play a part in being prejudiced against a particular
Okay, first of all, I'm not going to
defendant.
litigate the beliefs of the National Council of Laws, nor the long tenuous connection you're trying to make between the Latino Bar Association in California. But
No, stop! You're not being honest. It's the La Raza. It's called La Raza.
It's not affiliated with Sean. He also said in interview after interview, question after question, that he implied no Latino judge. Forget their memberships, forget their beliefs, associations, political donations. No Latino judge could fairly adjudicate a case involving Donald Trump, nor could any Muslim judge. So this is not about one judge, and this is where this is problematic. And by the way,
here's the thing: you want to ignore the facts of the case, and that's a problem because the facts of the case, as Monica, I think, articulated very well. The two law firms appointed by the judge have close connections to both President Obama and the Clintons and the other radical group, MoveOn.org. You know, you can dismiss. I totally concede your point that the National Council of La Raza is not the same as the San Diego La Raza Lawyers Association. But when you actually look at the San Diego Lawyers Association and you find out on their website, there's a link to the National Council of La Raza. So that does raise questions about whether or not they have some type of association with this radical group.
Sean, I'd like to jump in if I can, because I've actually clerked for a federal judge for close to a year. This is Danielle. And I think we need to remind ourselves that judges are people. Judges are people. They have life experience. They have associations. Often they have associations that are connected with causes that they care about, maybe with their ethnicity, maybe with their life experiences. And so I think the bigger problem here is that Donald Trump is besmirching this judge for no good reason. I mean, there are some decisions in his case that he didn't like, but that happens with every litigant. That's just life. He is besmirching this judge on the basis of the association that you're talking about that may or may not hold.
But wait a minute. Shouldn't our judicial system be above reproach? In other words, shouldn't we assume that there should not be politics brought into the courtroom? And when a judge in a particular case, and you're dealing with a presidential candidate now, is making appointments with law firms directly associated with the competitor of another presidential candidate, it does raise questions.
Well, I get there's two questions here, and I absolutely believe a judge goes into a courtroom, they wear a black robe, they are a collection of their experiences, but they are meant to set everything aside. And I believe in that system, and I believe that this judge has set those things aside.
You haven't read everything in the case, then why would the judge allow one plaintiff to be replaced with another plaintiff once the original plaintiff was found to have said positive things about Trump University? Isn't that unusual?
And I can explain that it's actually not. So this is
actually not. Okay, yeah, we'll just get rid of the litigant that looks good for Mr. Trump, and we'll put in one that looks bad. Okay,
well, that's what he's saying. But a class action always has a class representative, and by the terms of the law and by the terms of the Class Action Fairness Act, the representative plaintiff has to have claims that are similar to all of the other members of the class. And so what sometimes happens.
And what happened with the original plaintiff? You're not telling the whole story.
Well, as I understand it, the original plaintiff was replaced with a...
And why was the original plaintiff replaced?
That's how class action law works.
I'm asking, why was the original plaintiff replaced? Do either of you know? Because the original plaintiff was found to have said positive things about Trump University and one's experience with it.
And undoubtedly, in the course of a trial, that will come out. But the way class action
not necessarily if the judge rules against that coming out.
You have a named plaintiff who represents the full class. Look, again, you know what, actually, Sean? You go to town with this one. This is a losing issue. This is a losing issue for your side across the board.
I don't need your advice on what's a losing issue. I'm just saying in fundamental fairness.
One judge.
If you Sally Cohn, let's just look at you for a second. Let's say sallycohn.com. I don't know what your website. Do you have a website?
Yes, it is sallycohn.com. Thanks for the ad, Sean.
And let's say that you link on your website to the National Council of La Raza, like the San Diego La Raza Lawyers Association. Okay, then we look into what you're linking to. All right, the National Council of La Raza, that would be affiliation with a group and the emergence of the Mecha movement in the 1960s, which was a radical separatist student movement in California that espoused this, mythical nation of Aztlan.
Bring a flashlight in that rabbit hole, Sean.
It's not a rabbit hole. I'm trying to advise. I'm trying to educate you that is connected to the National Association of La Raza.
He's a member of an organization that has a link to another organization on his website, and you want to tie it to him.
Would
Good luck
you?
with that.
Would you?
Let me ask you a question.
No, it's not done. No, you don't get away with that. Monica Crowley, if wouldn't that be the equivalent of you, Monica Crowley, linking to a separatist group on the other side, on a conservative side? What's the difference?
Yes, and certainly when any example of that happens, all hell breaks loose, right? When anybody does something like that. The bigger point is, I think, twofold, Sean. One, I think Donald Trump sort of stumbled into this. I think he has legitimate cause for concern, but he didn't handle it the proper way. What Trump should be saying is, look, there are plenty of unbiased, impartial judges in this country. That is true. But we also have a problem of very biased judges in this country. I don't know whether Judge Curiel is one way or the other, but if you elect me, I can guarantee you that I'm going to make sure that the federal judiciary from the Supreme Court down has conservative judges that are strict constitutionalists. The other point, and this is a big one, this has to do with the judiciary and what we have been told by the left for decades, which is that anybody of color cannot get a fair shake in the justice system. Justice Sotomayor, the Supreme Court Justice, the wise Latina, said, and I quote, ethnicity will make a difference in our judging. The Supreme Court just recently overturned the death sentence of a black defendant because his case was heard by an all-white jury in Georgia, so they vacated that death sentence. The assumption is that an all-white jury cannot be fair. This is what the left has been telling us for a long time.
Actually, Monica, the law is that you cannot make a jury selection on the basis of race.
Hold on, let me finish. I'll let you finish.
The law.
What is involved here is the reverse. Did Donald Trump handle it in the most graceful or effective way? Of course not. He did not. That's why we're having this debate. But the bigger point is that he was raising a point to the reverse, and I suppose that's not allowed to raise those questions, right?
Okay, I want to go back to this because this is very important. It is against the law to select a jury on the basis of race, and that death penalty case was overturned because the notes from the prosecutor, which had been held through the appeals process, showed that there had been notations in the jury selection sheets that indicated whether the juror was white or non-white. That was the problem there, number one. Number two, judges all the time, as I said at the beginning, are affiliated. We have Scalia, Scalia was. We have Justice Thomas now, very, very involved with the Federalist Society, which is a conservative lawyers group, okay? And you don't, that was their right.
Do they have any radical views that you know of?
Well, I mean, radical is in the eye of the beholder.
No.
Right?
Well, hang on. If La Raza and the National Council now, which is separate from the San Diego Lawyers La Raza group.
Oh, boy.
If La Raza, which is tied to the website, if in fact they believe in this radical separatist movement where the southwest of the United States, the nation of Aztlan, would belong to Mexico, is it? Excuse me, can I stop interrupting? Danielle, would that be considered radical to you? Does the Federalist Society relate to or have any connections to any radical separatist groups?
Well, calling them a La Raza a radical separatist group is one thing. I mean, Texas wants to secede. We have, groups are allowed to have...
No, I don't know that Texas wants to secede. Maybe some people.
We're allowed to have these... I go back to what Trump did, and I think in many ways we're in agreement. It was inartful, it was inarticulate, it wasn't appropriate. He had a really great news week, and he should have focused on that. But I'm just not sure he can really help himself. I think he feels victimized by this judge. I don't think it's right. I don't think he was. I think it's inappropriate.
Can I just ask, Sean, do you think that this is what Trump said, that any Latino judge or any Muslim judge cannot fairly hear a case against Donald Trump?
I don't, that's not what he said. That's not a direct quote. You're paraphrasing.
I'm sorry,
that is not a direct quote. Thank you very much. No, but I will say that, listen, when you have a presidential...
What do you think?
I think there are fair people in all races, backgrounds, creeds, and colors. And I also think in this particular case, inarticulately, and I think he should have definitely said it a lot differently, but I think I understand his feelings here based on this judge's background. I think there might be questions that the judge holds radical views, and that could play a factor in his case.
Sean, I love you. You're getting this one wrong. He made this about the judge's ethnicity, and he didn't just make it about this judge.
I think he inarticulately was talking about the judge's lack of fairness, and I'm talking about it's not about ethnic backgrounds; it's about political backgrounds. For me, this is about politics.
But that's not what Trump has said.
No,
Sean.
I am I'm saying.
Judges
I said it again. I said
judges.
it's inarticulate, and I will say it again. But I am saying that I think that this was rooted in is the fact that he feels he was treated unfairly.
I think you're probably both right in the sense that Trump didn't really say it, or he was sort of equivocal about it. But that's also what we see in a lot of the delivery and a lot of his policy positions and a lot of his responses to journalists. And he didn't say point blank, I think any Muslim judge would be biased.
He said it's possible. He said it's possible.
Exactly, Sean. And I think that he leaves himself a lot of wiggle room. This is how he delivers. And I think.
Listen, I will agree. I think this is getting too deep in the weeds for most people, but unfortunately the soundbite rules the day, and it's a much deeper issue than the soundbite. And that's the problem here. All right.
Always
Thank
is.
you all. 800-941-SEAN if you want to be a part of the program.
We know you never want to miss the Sean Hannity Show. And now you never have to. Just sign